So it's 2 years? 2 years since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe it's been that long already.
And the impact, well, it seems to stretch much further than just abortion access itself, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. For this deep dive, we've been looking through articles from CU Boulder Today, CNN, and USC Today.
Right, trying to get a handle on what these sources tell us about the last couple of years and, what other issues are getting tangled up in this now.
Exactly. Roe being overturned on June 24th, 2022, it basically ended the federal protection, kicked it back to the states.
So the core question we're digging into, based on these articles from around mid-2024, is what are the real effects? And what else is getting pulled into this?
Right. And we're looking back from now, Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. It's definitely been a period of, well, massive change.
Okay, so let's start with maybe the most obvious thing, the legal situation. How things look state by state.
Yeah, the sources paint a picture of a real patchwork across the country. Stark differences in access.
We're seeing, 14 states with total or near total abortion bans right now?
That's the number, yeah. And then you've got another 11 states that have brought in other, pretty significant restrictions.
So that's quite a few states locking things down.
It is. And the CU Boulder Today article has this striking statistic. About 1 in 3 women of childbearing age now lives in one of these states.
1 in 3? Wow.
And Amanda Stevenson, a sociologist, they quote, she calls these restrictions profoundly unprecedented.
More extreme than what came before Dobbs.
Much more extreme, she argues. Things like trying to ban all abortions, even to save the pregnant person's life. Or these 6-week bans.
Which is often before someone even realizes they're pregnant.
Exactly. So very restrictive.
Okay, so if you live in one of those states, how are people actually accessing care? That's the immediate question, really.
Right. And a big part of the answer, according to CNN and CU Boulder Today, is travel. A lot of travel.
People crossing state lines?
A significant increase. The estimate for 2023 was around 171,000 people traveling out of state for an abortion.
171,000. That's huge. What percentage of abortions is that?
It works out to about 1 in 5 abortions performed that year involved crossing state lines.
1 in 5.
And the CU Boulder piece really highlights the burden this creates.
Right, because we know people seeking abortions often face economic challenges already.
Precisely. So now you add the cost of travel, maybe taking time off work, finding childcare. It's a huge financial hurdle.
It really lays bare how access is tied to your location and, well, your bank account.
It does, and it raises questions about how sustainable this is and the pressure it puts on the states people are traveling to.
But travel isn't the only way people are adapting, is it? Medication abortion seems to be a really big piece of this puzzle now.
Oh, absolutely central. Medication abortion has become much more common.
The numbers are pretty high now.
Yeah, CU Boulder and CNN both put it around 63 to 64% of all abortions in the U.S. in 2023.
63 to 64%, and that's up quite a bit.
It is. It was 53% in 2020, and way back in 2001, it was less than 10%.
That's a dramatic change.
Yeah.
So the pills being available by mail must be key here.
Seems to be a major factor, yeah. Helping maintain overall abortion numbers even with state bans in place.
Although that probably opens up another front for legal challenges, I imagine, targeting the pills themselves.
That's definitely a concern, yes. Something we'll probably touch on later.
It does feel like a sort of parallel system is developing. Okay, what about the states where abortion is still legal? Are they feeling the effects?
They definitely are. Colorado is a good example mentioned in the CU Boulder article.
Right, seeing more patients from out of state.
A lot more. They saw about 6,700 non-residents seeking care there in 2023.
6,700. And what proportion of their total procedures is that?
It represented 27% of all abortions in Colorado that year. Before 2022, it was only about 10%.
So more than a quarter of their patients are from out of state now. That must strain resources.
Exactly. It puts pressure on clinics, potentially leading to longer waits, even for Colorado residents.
So beyond just getting the appointment, there's this whole other layer of legal risk now, right?
Yes, that's another significant shift. The concern about legal consequences has really spiked.
The CU Boulder piece mentioned something about calls to a helpline.
A 900% increase in calls to a legal helpline. People worried about, the legal side of things.
900%. That's astounding.
Mm-hmm.
Does that translate into actual prosecutions? Is that data clear?
It's actually quite hard to get solid numbers on prosecutions because crime data is so fragmented, but we know it happens.
Are there examples?
Well, the article points out at least 61 people were prosecuted for self-managed abortion between 2000 and 2020. And there was that recent case in Texas.
Right, where a woman was charged with murder
Yeah,
initially.
exact. Those charges were dropped, but the fact it happened at all really underscores the risks and the fear people feel.
Yeah, it creates this atmosphere of anxiety, doesn't it?
It really does.
The CU Boulder article even mentioned, sort of anecdotally, people changing their behavior,
Hmm.
avoiding sex, relationships, even pregnancy itself because of the risks.
Yes, that potential chilling effect on personal decisions is a really profound, though hard to measure consequence.
And it doesn't stop at abortion, does it? The sources suggest the ripples are hitting contraception too.
That's a major area of concern highlighted in the articles. Justice Thomas's opinion in the Dobbs case itself raised flags.
How so?
Well, he questioned the legal reasoning behind Roe, but that same reasoning, that same legal theory, is also what underpins the right to contraception. Griswold v. Connecticut.
So by questioning one, he implicitly questioned the other, leading to worries about future challenges to contraception.
Precisely. And the potential for actual state-level bans on certain types of contraception.
Bans on contraception,
Like,
like IUDs or the pill. That sounds extreme.
it does, but CU Boulder Today and USC Today suggest it's a possibility, often fueled by misinformation, like mislabeling certain contraceptives as abortifacients.
So based on medically inaccurate ideas.
Right. And then there's this other looming threat, the Comstock Act.
Ah, that 19th century law. How does that come into play?
Well, it was originally about mailing obscene materials, but there's talk, serious talk mentioned in both CU Boulder and USC Today, of using it to try and ban the mailing of anything related to contraception or abortion.
So that would hit abortion pills directly.
Yes, but potentially also things like IUDs, maybe even medical equipment used for procedures. It could become a tool for sort of backdoor national ban if federal protections weaken.
Wow. Okay, and then there's emergency medical care. EMTALA. That seems like a critical flashpoint.
It really is. EMTALA is the federal law requiring hospitals to provide stabilizing care in emergencies.
Including for pregnant patients.
Yes. And sometimes stabilizing care in a pregnancy emergency like severe hemorrhage or infection might require terminating the pregnancy. An
Yeah.
abortion, essentially.
But state bans conflict with that.
That's the core issue. States with bans are challenging the federal government, saying their state laws trump EMTALA.
So doctors are caught in the middle, risking prosecution under state law if they follow federal law.
Exactly. Or denying critical, potentially life-saving care if they follow state law. It puts both doctors and patients in an impossible position.
And that's currently being fought out in court.
Yes, the Supreme Court is actually considering an EMTALA case right now, so the outcome there will be incredibly important.
And we can't forget IVF. The Alabama situation really brought that into focus, didn't it? The CNN article covered that.
It really did. When the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that frozen embryos are legally considered human beings, well, it threw IVF into chaos there.
Clinics paused treatments.
Yes, out of fear of lawsuits, wrongful death claims, you name it, just huge legal uncertainty.
They passed a law to try and fix it, right?
They did pass a law offering some protections, but as CNN noted, the concerns haven't entirely gone away. At least one provider still planned to stop services.
It just shows how far-reaching the consequences of overturning Roe have been, things you might not immediately connect.
Absolutely. Unforeseen consequences spreading out.
Okay, let's shift a bit to the political and social side. How are people responding? Obviously, it's a huge election issue.
Huge. CNN and USC Today both emphasize it's a key motivator for voters heading into the 2024 elections.
And we're seeing efforts to put abortion rights directly on the ballot.
Yes, quite a few states trying to amend state constitutions to explicitly protect reproductive rights. Colorado, Florida, Maryland, South Dakota.
Others are expected to. New York, Nevada, maybe.
Those are possibilities mentioned, yeah. It's a direct attempt to use ballot measures to counteract legislative bans or restrictions.
Interesting. And despite all these bans, there's that statistic in the CNN article about abortion rates.
Right. Kind of counterintuitive, maybe. But abortion numbers and rates actually hit a decade-long high in 2023, according to the Guttmacher Institute data they cited.
A decade high, even with 14 states banning it. How does that work?
Well, it likely reflects that huge increase in travel we talked about, plus the rise of medication abortion. Clinics, abortion funds, support networks are working incredibly hard to get people care.
So it shows a kind of resilience, maybe.
I think that's fair to say. A determination to access care despite the barriers.
And what about public opinion generally? The USC Today piece had some insights there.
Yeah, it noted widespread support for reproductive rights across genders. It's not just a quote-unquote women's issue.
Political party is the main dividing line.
That seems to be the biggest factor, according to Jane Junn at USC. But crucially, even some Republican-leaning states like Kansas have seen voters support abortion rights in referendums since Dobbs.
Kansas was a big example of that, wasn't it?
It was. Shows that when people vote directly on the issue, the outcome might be different than you'd expect based on the state's overall politics.
Okay, finally, the courts. It
Uh,
feels like this is far from over legally. The Supreme Court is still involved.
Definitely not over. The recent Supreme Court decision on mifepristone, the abortion pill.
They rejected the challenge.
They did, but importantly, it was on procedural grounds. The
Right.
challengers didn't have the legal right or standing to sue. It wasn't a ruling on the safety or legality of the pill itself.
So, not a guarantee it's safe from future challenges.
Not at all. Aya Gruber from USC Today, quoted in their article, makes that clear. More challenges are likely.
And the EMTALA case is still pending before the Supreme Court.
Right. That decision could drastically impact emergency care for pregnant people nationwide. So, lots of legal uncertainty still ahead.
So wrapping up this deep dive, looking at your sources, we've got this picture of, well, a fractured legal map, right? Huge challenges to access, lots of travel.
Yeah, and then the increased legal worries, the personal risks people feel, plus these broader threats bubbling up around contraception, emergency care, even IVF.
And against that backdrop, you have these strong political reactions, ballot measures, high voter interest, and this surprising data showing abortion rates actually went up.
Along with these ongoing court battles that could change things again, it's complex.
Definitely complex. We hope this look through your shared sources has helped clarify some of those connections, maybe highlighted some surprising things like that abortion rate statistic.
Yeah, it's a situation that's changing fast with really deep impacts on people's lives and the whole healthcare system.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Given all these shifts we've discussed, the legal fights, the political battles, the impacts on care, what might this tell us about the future? Not just for abortion, but for healthcare access and personal autonomy more broadly in the U.S. What other rights, what other aspects of health might face similar challenges down the road?